organization working at the office of C. Percy White Associates. I've been working as a real estate agent, broker, investor, and represented buyers and sellers officially 21 years as man. Broker told me that it took me 17 years to understand how to transact real estate back in 1992. I really had no idea what he was talking about. I closed deals. I figured I knew enough to make a few dollars. Couldn't be much more. But after 20 years of being in the business and approaching this profession from an Afrocentric perspective, I see the playing field now from a historical, political, economic, and global view. To begin with, I would like to start with a quote from one of my heroes, Malcolm X. Revolution is based on land. Land is the basis of all independence. Land is the basis of our freedom, justice, and equality. It's important to understand that we must protect our land. This idea, our concept, is not black or white, but against the oppressed, the haves feeding off the have-nots. When the 13 colonies fought England, it was for land and liberty or death. Let us not be fearful, ashamed, or even embarrassed to step up and do what needs to be done. Our economy is in crisis. Our families are in crisis. Never in the history of mankind has any nation rise to power as fast as the United States. They did it on the backs of Africans, Mexicans, Indians, Chinese, and many others. Throughout history, many wars have been fought over land. Let us not forget Cecil Rhodes and the genocide of Africa for the land. General Custer leading the U.S. cavalry to move the Indians, or remove the Indians, for the land. The land is the most important component to who we are and why we are. And let us not lose sense of that for a moment. Our problem today is that we're experiencing the greatest transfer of wealth in U.S. history. Now, real estate is the backbone in capitalism. The currency, our money, should be thought of as a tool to do business with each other. Initially, our paper dollars represented gold notes. When the gold standard was in place, our dollars were capable of going to the bank and actually converting them into gold. It is important to understand the little history of money to appreciate why we're experiencing this nightmare, the loss of our land. I want to read to you a quote, the Banker's Manifesto, 1933. And mind you, this was written 66 years ago. Capital must protect itself in every way, through combination and through legislation. Debts must be collected, loans and mortgages foreclosed as soon as possible. When through a process of law, the common people lose their homes, they will be more trackable, they will be easily governed by the strong arm of the law, applied by the central power of wealth under control of leading financiers. People without homes will not quarrel with their leaders. This is well known among our principal men now engaged in forming an imperialism of capital to govern the world. By dividing the people, we can get them to expand their energies, fighting over questions of no importance to us, except teachers of the common herd. Thus, by discrete action, we can secure ourselves what has been generally planned and successfully accomplished. Initially, our money represented gold. The United States abandoned the gold standard in two steps. First, in 1933, when President Roosevelt ended America's right to exchange paper dollars for gold. Then in 1971, when Nixon closed the gold window and denied foreign governments the ability to exchange the U.S. dollar for gold. Thanks to our government, particularly President Franklin Roosevelt, the Gold Confiscation Act of April 5th, 1933, was put in by his executive order. And this enabled the government to prevent the hoarding of gold, required all people to deliver their gold to the Federal Reserve by May 1st, 1950, with all this being punishable by a $10,000 fine and or 10 years in prison. And when President Richard Nixon closed the gold window, he officially took the United States off the gold standard. With this in mind, I would like to go to a few significant events in recent history to really appreciate what's happening now. In July of 2001, an inventory of the U.S. gold located in the World Trade Towers with an excess of $260 billion and this represents 17% of the world's total gold reserves. On September 12th, 2001, only $255 million worth of gold was found in the truck with a machine gun with a truck running. Now let us speak in relative terms. Over 16% of the world's entire supply of gold just vanished. It's important to understand what is going on here, because without the gold to back our currency, what is our currency secured by? Today, our currency is what's known as a fiat currency. This is basically our government's IOU, that's collateralized by the assets of the bank, which are mortgages, which brings us back to those things. Today, our banks are allowed to loan 10 times the amount of money they are holding. So you wonder why they get rich charging you, say 11% interest? They're not actually gaining 11% interest. They're gaining 110% interest a year. Most of these mortgages make up different financial instruments. They're called CMOs, collateralized mortgage obligations. They have CDOs, collateralized debt obligations. They bundle these mortgages together and they sell them to investors and to governments around the world. These governments and investors, they buy them for 4 to 20 cents on the dollar. So they borrow against them up to 90%. So again, they are making more money out of thin air. Now, bringing things current. In the last 18 months, 2.9 million homes have started the foreclosure process. Out of over 61 million total mortgages nationally, that is almost 5% of the nation's properties on the threat of foreclosure. 30 million, almost 50%, are currently underwater, meaning that the mortgages are worth more than the property. Banks have repossessed 850,000 properties in 2008. They did over 400,000 in 2007. Understanding these facts tells us that the United States can ill afford massive foreclosure losses without further compromising the value of our dollar. The actual expression is called debasing. The dollar is spiraling into more debt. The current administration is putting plans in motion to assist people with loan modifications. These modifications are assisting people with their mortgages and helping them get them up to date. So there's a little hope here. But the writing is on the walls of a massive collapse. I refer to history. History is our greatest teacher. And how far back does this problem go? We can start with the Bible and Jesus, whose teachers were preaching against the oppressor. As I go forward, think of the money changers as the current day Wall Street. Jesus was so upset at the sight of the money changers in the temple, he waded in and started to tip over the tables and drive them out with his whip. This being one of the only times we ever hear of him using force in his entire ministry. Let's understand what happened here. The Jews had paid their temple tax with a special coin called the shekel. It was believed to be the only coin acceptable to God at the time. What aggravated Jesus was that there was only a limited number of these coins in circulation. The money changers saw that there was a buyer's market here. And like anything else in short supply, they were able to raise the